Hey guys, Troy Francis coming at you with another video. So I want to talk a bit about narcissism today, which is a topic I find fascinating, and apparently hundreds of thousands, if not millions of other people find fascinating as well, because it seems to be just being discussed endlessly online at the moment. It's probably just my feed, to be honest, or my feeds, but I just see posts the whole time on narcissism. I was out with a friend the other day and we were discussing narcissism and indeed sociopathy, which is a somewhat separate topic, but obviously they're interrelated. Talking about it a lot with James. It's something that we incorporate into our course, The Edge, which we may well be re-releasing later in the year, by the way, so keep your eyes peeled for that. And obviously, whenever you have a conversation about narcissism, we have to acknowledge that there are both clinical definitions of the term and also the more colloquial definition of the term. Now, I'm not a PhD, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not really the person to come to for a clinical definition of the term, but the manner in which I'm using it is, I believe, the manner in which it's probably commonly understood, which is having a very high sense of regard for oneself. In fact, you could go further and you could talk about actual grandiosity, okay? An overly inflated sense of one's own importance, one's own worth, one's own value, etc., etc. A high demand or desire for the regard of other people, that sense of always needing or wanting the approval, the validation of others. And there are certain sort of somewhat cruel streaks that can come along with this. You know, you can, narcissists can discard people that they feel are not giving them the supply that they need. People talk about narcissistic supply in relationships. They can be very, very cruel and cutting to people. And this sort of leads into sociopathy, which, as I say, is a slightly separate, although related topic. My question to you, though, is, are you actually narcissistic enough? And the reason I say that is because we live in, and I think one of the reasons why this is such a trending topic is because we live in a society that is basically fueled by narcissism, right? It is set up for us all to be narcissists. It encourages us to be narcissistic, okay? I mean, look at the explosion of social media over the last 15 years, 10, 15 years, whatever. Look at the explosion of things like OnlyFans. I mean, wherever you go in the world now, whether it's here in London or if you're in Dubai or you're in Paris or you're in, I don't know, Rome, wherever it is, right? What do you see? You see hordes of people, and it's women, but not just women, men as well, taking photographs of themselves, taking hundreds and hundreds of photographs of themselves so they can get that one fantastic image that they can post on Instagram after they've filtered it and they put it through FaceApp and everything else. So they look wonderful and they look perfect and they look amazing. And obviously, you know, it's much more about the person than it is about the place where you're at, despite the historical interest that place may hold. It's interesting actually because recently I was at a funeral for one of my relatives, and a cousin of mine was talking about some old family photographs that they'd found from my grandparents. And my grandparents, you know, they used to go visit America and Canada and places like that. And a lot of the photographs would be pictures of things like things like the World Trade Center, say, or the Empire State Building. Not with them in it, just a photograph of the building itself, okay? Now, that was obviously pre-internet, and it was, I suppose, slightly different in that regard, because it wasn't that you could just go on your phone and look up a photo of the thing and like, okay, right, now I've seen that building. It was kind of, I suppose it had more worth in that sense, because it's like, wow, look, this is this amazing building. We've traveled this way, we've seen it, here it is. But of course now, most of the time, if you look at most people's feeds, and there are exceptions, but if you look at most people's feeds, what you're going to get is a picture of an iconic structure like the Trevi Fountain in Rome, and you're going to have the person in front of it, and the significance of the photo is not really in the Trevi fountain, it's in the person standing in front of it looking cute in an amazing dress, or whatever it is. Okay, so it's all become about the self. It's all become about our narcissism. It's all become about fueling our narcissism and displaying our narcissism. Okay, and as I say, I mean, it's just technology and society and the way that the world is shaping up. We are all of us being encouraged in this sort of mass epidemic of narcissism. However, it doesn't affect everybody, and a lot of the time what we find is that the guys who come to us for help, amongst other things, because there are other problems here, but one of the problems that some of the guys that approach us for help have is that instead of being narcissistic, that is to say having an almost overly aggrandized sense of themselves, they have an under aggrandized sense of themselves. They have low self-esteem. Now, that's not to say that people who are narcissists cannot also have low self-esteem. They usually do. There's a very well-known dictum in 12-step recovery, which is that addicts will often have huge egos and low self-esteem. Okay, they have both of those things at the same time. And that's certainly something that's been true of me. I can say that in my own life. It's certainly true of other people I know. It's certainly true of, if you believe the accounts of various celebrities that I've read about, it certainly seems to be true of them as well. So that's definitely a thing. Narcissism doesn't in itself mean high self-esteem. But if you have just low self-esteem and you're not even bigging yourself up in any way, then in today's economy, in today's social media economy, in today's attention economy, and in today's dating economy, then you are putting yourself at a disadvantage, okay? And this is why, and actually this was going back a few years. This goes back a few years when Royce, the blogger, talks about having irrational self-confidence and how important irrational self-confidence is in dating. And I would argue, I don't know exactly when he wrote that, but it was at least 15 years ago. I would argue that it's even more important today to be irrationally self-confident than it was 15 years ago, because when you're in a world where everybody is blowing their own trumpet, so to speak, when everybody, the huge prevalence of both men and women who are showcasing amazing lifestyles and making themselves look fucking fantastic, quite frankly, through various means, either through photographs, and obviously a peripheral topic to this is obviously the gym and the use of supplements and the use of steroids and Botox and fillers and things to make people look great. So physically as well, people are starting to look better, plus they're filtering in it, plus on top of that then you've got things like AI, right? All of this stuff. So the smart people out there are advertising themselves. They're putting themselves out there in a way that is incredibly arrogant, really, and is almost demanding of worship. It's almost like we are becoming these demigods in our own minds, and we're demanding the worshipful attention of our followers. Okay, and I'm not saying that's a good thing. It's probably a terrible thing for humanity, to be honest. I mean, it kind of it flies in the face, doesn't it, of Christianity, really, which was, Christ, if nothing else, all about humility, right? And our society is going in exactly the opposite direction of that. But putting that to one side, for practical marketing purposes, if you want to stand out, then I think you need to have this, or you need to start to try to develop a higher sense of your own self-worth, okay? And at the beginning, that can be hard to do. And we can separate this out, by the way, because I'm not just talking about on Instagram, okay? That's one thing, okay? We could do a separate video. I mean, God knows people have whole courses about creating amazing Instagram accounts. That's one thing. So digitally, you can be narcissistic online and you can showcase it that way. But I'm not wholly talking about that. I'm also talking about the way that you carry yourself. When you walk into a room, walk into a party, when you walk into a nightclub, when you walk into a lounge bar, how are you coming across? Okay? How do you act? How do you carry yourself? All right? Are you carrying yourself as somebody of huge worth and huge value, or are you kind of shuffling in and not really holding eye contact and being a little bit shy and a little bit like that, and you're not really, you're just not really doing it. It's not going to do you any favors. Okay, so what happened for me, and again, this is going back several years to pre-social media and pre-smartphone days. So this proves that this is valid, because even back then, and I mean, there's 100 times the pressure that there was now than there was then, but even then this worked through that combination of me going out and doing a lot of alcohol, a lot of drinking, various pharmaceuticals and so on and so forth, and developing this sort of false bravado, this sort of false confidence. What happened as a result of that was that people started to treat me differently. Okay, so I would walk into the club. Instead of walking into the club like the shy kind of loser, with like this, or sort of, with my drink up against my chest, and shyly looking around and everything else. Instead, just my body language, I would walk into the club like I fucking owned the place, like I was the fucking king, okay? And I had no right to do that. Objectively, I was a complete loser, okay? I mean, objectively, I was, I say out of shape, I was very skinny. I certainly wasn't like jacked or anything like that. I didn't have any money. I was always sort of quite, I suppose, well, you could say well dressed. I mean, I had a slightly more flamboyant sense of style back in those days, but I that was one thing that I did do. I always was quite interested in, making sure that I looked the part, whatever the part was for me at the time. I like to stand out. I like to draw attention to myself. So that was one thing that I was doing. But I wasn't, I didn't have any money. I wasn't ripped. I wasn't jacked. I wasn't particularly tall. I wasn't particularly anything else really. But I bleached my hair blonde, which was very popular at the time. If you look back at old pictures of people like Robbie Williams back in the 90s had bleached hair. Eminem, of course, had bleached hair. The footballer Paul Gascoigne had bleached hair. Beckham, I think, at one point had it. So I did that. So I had this bleach blonde hair. I was wearing these like outrageous clothes, and I was just walking like a fucking rock star. And it was completely fabricated, right? That sense of self, that sense of me being somebody worthy of the attention of others was completely false. There was no objective basis in it, really. I mean, all I was a Commodore Garden alcoholic, basically. Scraping by on a minimal salary, living in a shared apartment somewhere, and my life was kind of circling around the drain. But nevertheless, I won the attention of many very attractive girls at that time, and also other guys as well who wanted to get to know me because they saw that I had this kind of riz about me, charisma, I suppose you might call it, this sort of strong sense of my own identity, and it drew people in, all right? And as I say, this was going back 15, 20 years, whatever, like a long time ago. And I would say that now you absolutely need to be carrying yourself with that kind of confidence. Now, I wrote a thread about this earlier, which I published on X and also on my Instagram as well, so you can have a look back and find that depending on when this video goes out. But I mean, one of the points that I always make is that I think that you have to look at it when you think about your value. Like, a lot of guys will look at themselves and think, well, I have no value. I'm doing a shit. I'm not good looking. I'm not tall. I don't dress well. I'm a bit out of shape. I'm doing a shitty job. I'm not rich, whatever. I'm not a 6-foot Chad. And they'll focus on all of these negatives. What you should do instead is you should be working on all of those things. I mean, the 6-foot thing maybe is going to be tricky unless you go Turkey and get the old legs chopped and lengthened and all of that, which I wouldn't recommend. But you want to be working on all the areas that you can work on. Okay, so you want to be doing everything you can to improve your looks. You want to be doing everything you can to improve your grooming, your style, your fashion, the way that you dress. Those things are important. They're not the be-all and end-all, but they are important. Okay, you probably do in 2024, going to 2025. You probably do want to be looking at your social media platforms as well and optimizing those to the best of your ability. And there's help available with that out there for sure. And you can contact me if you want some advice. Troy at realtroyfrancis.com. But you want to be working on all of that stuff. Okay, but you also have to be proud of the potential that you inside know that you have. Okay, because even when, objectively, you could look at my life and you could say, I was a complete failure, I was a complete loser. Even then, I knew without any shadow of a doubt that I would be successful. Okay, there was no point ever that I doubted that. I knew that I had it in me to do what was necessary in order to win. And I'm talking about both in terms of dating, in terms of business, in terms of career, all these different things. I knew that I could win. I just wasn't there yet. Well, so what? Okay? The rest of the world would just have to fucking wait to catch up. I already fucking knew. So I already carried myself like the man, okay? Even if, if you broke it down and objectively looked at each of the elements, you say, well, hang on a minute. I still acted as though I was already the man, because I was. I just hadn't fully flowered yet, okay? A rose is still a rose, even if it's still in the phase of the bud. So I think what you need to do is take the focus away somewhat from the objective, whatever the objective reality you think is. And remember as well, you might be being overly hard on yourself, because we are often overly harsh on ourselves as well. We often compare ourselves too negatively to other people. And you also have to remember, everyone else is faking it as well. So, the other people that when you go into the club who look super confident, how are they really feeling inside? Are they really super confident? The people who seem super rich, have they just maxed out all their credit cards, right? Are they actually rich? The people who are showcasing these amazing lives on Instagram, are they really having amazing lives? Or were they staying like a six bunk hostel, and then they're, outside some really expensive place, making it look like, so you don't know the reality. So you shouldn't compare yourself to other people's outsides, because they're faking it as well. That's the other thing. But what you should do is focus less on where you are right now. You should be brutally honest with yourself and acknowledge, yes, I do need to improve. Yes, there are things I need to do to get better, to become more sex worthy, to become more of a, the kind of guy that women are going to regard as a catch, for sure. But I'm working on those things, and I know that I'm going to get there. And so I'm going to give myself the respect of acting like that guy already. And for me, that worked very well, because what you find is that people tend to sort of take you at face value, really. They tend to just take you as you present, okay? So if you present as somebody who is supremely confident, irrationally self-confident, and clearly has strong self-belief, and clearly has a very strong frame, then for the most part, people are going to just kind of accept that as being the reality, okay? Not always. There's going to be people who will test you, and sometimes, you might fail that test or whatever, fine, whatever. For the most part, people are going to take you at face value, okay? And you're going to get much more traction with women in dating, and you're going to get much more traction networking with other guys when you behave in that manner than if you don't, all right? So again, we take it back to narcissism in the colloquial sense, that sense of grandiosity, that sense of inflated self-worth. Are you narcissistic enough? We are living in the age of, there's an epidemic of narcissism out there. Are you leaning into that enough? Or are you being too self-effacing? Are you being too self-deprecating? Maybe you are. You probably are. If you're watching videos like this and you're not getting the success in dating that you want, you're probably not bigging yourself up enough. I mean, think about rappers, right? Think about rap music. What is rap music? A lot of rap music is just rappers dissing each other and talking about how great they are. Okay, they've made bragging, self-aggrandizement into an art form, all right? And you should do that too. Again, fine line here. I'm not talking about walking up to somebody and saying, "Hey, I'm fucking amazing. Look at my Bugatti" or whatever. I don't mean, doing it in such a sort of crude, obvious way as that. But the way that you carry yourself, the way that you allow others to treat you, the way that you present yourself, it has to be congruent with this avatar of a guy who is successful, who is sure of himself, who knows what he's doing, who knows where he's going, and who knows 1,000% that he's going to get there. And when you do that, you will win. With that being said, we have a boot camp that's being run by myself and James Tusk coming up on the first weekend of August, which is the 1st to the 4th of August, 2024. If you're interested in coming along, there's a few spots left. information below, but basically just email troy@realtroyfrancis.com. That's troy@realtroyfrancis.com. Put the word Warsaw in the subject line and leave your WhatsApp details and we can discuss. I've also got a free PDF about flirting, so if you're interested in that, ask me about that as well and I can get that over to you. See you guys again very soon. Subscribe to the channel, give me a like, and thank you for watching.